Welcome to the space between us. I'm your host, Christine Yeung, psychologist and founder of Weaver. This is a podcast about your social health and connections and what happens to them when you are building something that demands everything. If you are leading, founding, or building something ambitious and wondering how others stay connected to those they love and care, this is for you. Every episode, I speak with leaders and founders who share what it really cost them and what they learned along the way while building big things. Not your usual expert advice podcast, just truth. This is the space between us. Let's meet there. Welcome to the first episode. Our special guest today is Nitha Prakash, Chief Operating Officer and Senior Psychologist at Cypress, a talent management company working with organizations on recruitment, development, and strategic workforce planning. Nitha is deeply committed to leadership development for women, multicultural communities, and creating safe space for vulnerability. In this conversation, we talk about what becoming COO asked of her closest relationships, the sacrifice she made, the moments when things felt stretched, and what she has learned about building nurturing ecosystem at work and at home while carrying immense responsibility. We also go deep on vulnerability, authentic leadership, emotional intelligence, and how her and her family teach her godson to co-regulate and show up for themselves and others. This is a conversation about building resilient relationships while building resilient leaders. This is the space between us. Let's get into it. Welcome, Nitha. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really grateful you said yes to this conversation straight away. I'm very grateful for you.
Thanks so much. And thanks for the opportunity, Christine. It's a real pleasure and privilege. Absolutely.
I've known you for how long? Like 18 years?
Yeah.
Almost like since we graduated.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
This podcast is about ambition and relationships and everything in between.
Yeah.
So let me start with asking about your career journey. Take us back to when you first graduated, and did you ever plan to become a COO? Was that always the plan? Did you have that ambition to start with? How does that evolve to where you are now?
Sure. God, no. Never had. Never had the ambition to be a COO. It was, a set of organic kind of situations that led up to it, ethos behind coming into this profession and finding that intersection of IT and psychology was all about how do I help people? How do I help people find and become the best versions of themselves? How do I engage with them? Because that was such a critical value system for me in terms of the work that I'd be doing and how can I help solve some of these big problems, be it an organizational level or at an individual level. But over time, there's been a series of opportunities that arose, which then led to becoming the COO, because as the organization grew and developed and my own interests grew and developed, I was heavily ensconced in getting not just working in the business as an employee, but starting to think about working on the business and what those impacts were. And the people that I work with, there were so many opportunities to kind of really develop. And throughout my career, I've often had different leaders who've kind of given me some insights into what I could be and where I could proceed. And probably my boss, who's the first male leader I've worked with in my entire career, was very instrumental in this. And he basically set up these opportunities, which then ensured that I was challenging myself and stepping into this role and taking on the role of managing people, not just from an objectives, but from a strategy and how do I manage the organization as well. So yeah, that's the space which led up to that.
It sounds like not just intrinsically you have that willingness to progress in your career, but also it seems like you're so much nurtured by your boss and the people around you.
Yeah.
So I think the question is just naturally comes in this journey of your career.
Yeah.
Who are the people that are around you?
Yeah. Look,
That really matters to you, to this
really
journey.
matters to me. So look, the most important is my family. They have been the biggest influence and the biggest support for me. My parents, my mother's mother, my grandmother, who was my earliest mentor. If you want to think about that, she was a woman who barely had an education, but she ran business, taught me what it meant to be a leader, because it wasn't just about showing up and doing the bare minimum. It was being present and creating spaces and places for her employees to be who they needed to be, and also kind of engage around, it's more, everything that you do in a business is about the people. And so that's what should be the focus. My father was iconic in that while he was always working, and that's probably where I've inherited my work ethic from, has been such an important influence in that he made time. And he's probably one of those people that has constantly taught me about trying to make time, because he didn't often have the time, I would say, that he would have liked to have had to support and guide us. My mom, who has been incredible, she's one of those few people who I know that no matter what you give her, she becomes an expert on it. She's just so incredible in that way. My husband, who's been my biggest rock, particularly in these last 11 years, and has just been the person that's challenged me and forced me to grow and become a better person. Parents are equally, his mom's an incredibly powerful woman, and as is my father-in-law, who's just absolutely incredible and sets this, ethic around what men can be in a relationship. And I'm surrounded by this incredible group of people that are my family, and then I extend that out to the very powerful women in my life that have made important contributions. And, I was very lucky, as I said, that I've always had female leaders. And I had this opportunity when I was quite young, at 19, to be supported by a female leader who basically never set up a boundary for me. She had me run a very large section of the university's entity. And it was just such when you think about it, you don't give a 19-year-old an opportunity to run something that huge. But she never told me about what the risks would be, or it wasn't from a place of deficit. It was, here's the potential, here's what you could do. And she never told me I couldn't do it, or there might be issues or challenges. And so I'm eternally grateful to her for that opportunity. And then when I kind of go back out, there's all these amazing women that have been part of my life. My boss's wife, was my coach and mentor, my my colleagues who are females, my friends who are females, who are just incredible. The mother of my godchildren, she is an absolute kick-ass. She's, for me, the epitome of what it means to be a woman and be a mother and be a daughter and everything else. All of that together, and their support system with the female friends that I have, and some of the female clients that I have been just absolutely iconic. And then the core of it on a day-to-day basis, my colleagues. I am so incredibly privileged to work with a team of men and women who are so loving and caring, and create a support system where we're all allowed to be who we need to be. And they absolutely kind of engender everything that makes me feel like I'm doing what I can to be a good leader to them. So I'm incredibly lucky that they are people that I count as family as well, for me, in many ways.
That's incredible. I'm so glad to hear you have such a healthy and nurturing ecosystem around you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us would think, how do you attract all these incredible people? Of course, your family is there, is always there. And how do you nurture this? I think that's the core of the podcast, is how do we build, how do we do relationship? Because, as a COO, you also need to task driven, right?
Yeah.
And how do we actually balance task and nurturing family and your colleagues? And what would be the 3 key skill to nurture these relationships?
Sure. Look, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Do I do this well all the time? Absolutely not. I think it's probably the primary ones for me has been the communication. It's been finding these people, have been who are the people in my life that I can be myself, that I don't put a facade or need to over engineer this personality, like this professional self or this personal self that is restricted to individuals, certain individuals, etc., and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily people who are are that people that are everyday, etc. This is a very limited group of people, I hasten to add. So this community that has been created has come because they've allowed me to be who I am. And that leads me to feel safe. So if I try and think of it as who can I communicate with and be myself with, who do I feel safe with? Like, who am I okay being vulnerable with? Because for me, the big part of this is the vulnerability, because when you open yourself out that way, you invite the opportunity for criticism and the opportunity to be rejected as well. And that's really quite scary. And have I had very negative things happen? Yeah, absolutely. There are moments where, those relationships didn't go as well, and I talked about this, friends for a season. And while I hasten to kind of say, hey, friends for a season, it wasn't, for me, that wasn't a bad thing. Even those people were iconic in supporting me in that moment. It is having that openness to the people that show up in your life. They may not be there for the full journey, but then some might be there just for that moment in time when you
And it's knowing that, right? Is setting up the expectation.
Yeah,
People come goes, and we all have our own circumstances.
absolutely, absolutely, and that makes so I think not shutting yourself out from, because the support that can come from the strangest places when you really don't expect it. And it's I think about some of the people that I never anticipated getting support from, that I've received support from, that I'm eternally grateful for. And they were so iconic in being able to, or emblematic of who they are, but then I've never seen them again, or I've never encountered them again, or we know that the other person exists, but we don't necessarily engage on a day-to-day basis. So don't close yourself off from those opportunities where people are willing to help, because it's really hard, especially when you're taught to be so independent. And as women, we are taught to be so independent. So we tend to kind of go, no, I've got this. And it's okay to kind of even if it's for a moment, to let somebody do something for you, however minute it might be. It's being okay with that. And probably the third thing is being honest with yourself. Honesty that we need to have about what is tangible, what is doable, what is feasible. And I think within that honesty, you also, if I can throw in a fourth one, is a lot of self-forgiveness and giving yourself grace. Which I think when you learn to forgive yourself, you give permission for others to forgive you for that you yourself may not kind of do, because that you're demonstrating you're being kind to yourself. But if you hold yourself to this intangible standard, I think then people go, okay, well, I can continue to hold this person up to this standard. And then that kind of, piles on some of the guilt we've talked about previously that have, shapes some of those interactions.
So Nitha, you mentioned about your incredibly supportive family before. And can I ask, what has been the role you are in asked of your closest relationships?
Yeah. Look, a lot. It's meant a lot of sacrifice in the relationship. So particularly for my partner, and to an extent his family, and of course my parents as well. It's been not being present when I've needed to be. There have been many, many moments that I needed to be 100% there. And my wedding is a classic example of, minutes before walking down the aisle, when I should have been present in the moment of about to make one of the biggest commitments of my life, not worrying so much about what my clients needed. And I was on the phone, kind of responding to a few things. And, my lovely bridesmaids who have worked with me previously, and our friends and colleagues as well, were quite adamant, but they were lovely because they knew that this is such an iconic and important part of who I am. But at the same time, they wanted me to be present. And I felt bad about that. I really genuinely felt bad about that. And then there were moments like Christmas, where I've taken calls on Christmas Day, left the dining room table because we've got clients in Asia that needed me to respond. So things like that, where you're filled with this incredible sense of guilt because you can't be 100% present. And it's not because they impose that guilt on you, it's a guilt you take on. Because, I mean, there are moments where my partner says, now, can't that be done later? And he's right. It probably could be done later. And, I shouldn't necessarily have to sacrifice some of these things. But then there are times where I have very little control over what it is I can and cannot do. And so it's asking a lot of him and of our relationship and my relationship with the extended family of his and mine and near family as well. Not calling my parents. And last year in particular was quite tough for us because we had these moments where we had a lot of back and forth of, am I doing the right thing here? Why am I taking on so much responsibility for so many aspects of the work that I'm doing, that it's coming at the sacrifice of my mental health, my relationships, etc., and stuff like that. But also recognizing that there is this lack of fairness and equity of what I'm putting into the relationship. Is he getting what he wants out of this as much as I'm getting from him? And the same thing with my family. Are my family getting what they want? This year, I'm consciously making decisions to spend time with people, because if I tallied the amount of time with him, with my family, with friends, it was horrible, and I'm ashamed of it. I'm ashamed that I didn't spend enough time with them. I wasn't present, that I didn't do the things that I'm supposed to do. And I'm trying to make a change this year where I am trying to make the phone calls, be present, go and socialize and visit the people that have been so important to me and continue to be so important to me. Make time, because as much as we'd like to think, the time is finite. And so I need to create that space. I can't just continue in this cycle. But, there's the flip side of the guilt of, what am I letting go of on this side as the COO of the team and the people and what they need from me, and my clients need from me, and the business needs from me. And it's an interesting kind of, I don't know, pull and push relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are absolutely not alone. That's why I start this podcast for that reason, because the worst thing is we feel alone and lonely in this journey of imbalance.
Yeah.
I think we need to talk more about the guilt that we have, the gift that we receive as well, like the incredible support from your family. It's the gift that you receive. And the cost is lack of time, energy, and presence with your family. And I don't think anyone have the answer to this. This is not a podcast that let's talk how do we solve this, because it's so complex.
Yeah.
If someone listening and think, I actually do not have family supporting me in this, what would you say to this person?
Look, I think it's incredibly hard when you don't have that. What's been where, and there have been moments where, my family just wasn't in a space themselves to be the 100% support system that I needed them to be. And this is where your village becomes a bit different. For me, other than a small member of my biological family, the family I have created has been from a circle of friends, family I've chosen, the family that's there no matter what, that just handle me with all of my imperfections, all of my bullshit and my crap and nonsense and all that stuff, and absolutely hold me accountable to be me. And it's such a powerful thing. And I think, don't feel alone. There are people out there who are weirdly supporting you in ways that you don't understand, and you do need to, and it takes time to find them. It took me time to find them. It took me time to understand what that support looks like. And it's not traditional support. Support can come in weird and wonderful ways, like simple things where, I took a couple of days off this week because I wanted to. I realized I needed to, and I wanted to, and I wanted to be present. We had New Year's in my community, and I wanted to take the time to really truly celebrate with large amounts of guilt, because I knew I was leaving my team to basically take over where I wasn't. Normally what they would do is they would kind of keep me on tabs and send me messages about what was going on, etc. But for 48 hours there was blissful silence. I didn't receive any messages, I didn't receive anything, etc. But what they did was they realized that I'd come to a point where I really needed the time, I needed the space, and they just stepped in. And so for that reason, my colleagues are my family, because where I needed somebody the most, or where I needed someone the most, they were there. They just stepped it up. I didn't ask them to, they just did it.
And that Nitha, is a reflection on your leadership. I want to acknowledge how incredible you are as a leader, that you are able and had to create that team. What human capabilities you think that as a leader that you empower your teams so that they are able to give you that space? I think a lot of the listeners would be, people leaders, founders themselves. And how do they create that culture and environment so that they can actually, I can take you to 2 days off, just 2 days.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think for me, I think the word empowering is quite powerful. I have a team that we've spent time getting them comfortable to be the ones that take lead in projects, that are coached to and are comfortable stepping into that space. There's so much empathy and care in this team where we genuinely take the time to get to know what's going on in each other's lives, and we pick up things for each other. And so to create that space, that psychological space, is a rare privilege, because I work with people who have agreed to take on that space. They've agreed to take on those roles. They've agreed to say, hey, my colleague needs to travel back home to spend time with his partner. Us as a team, we're going to pick up things so he is allowed to have that time. That happened, a couple of days ago with the team. Nobody asked anything. Nobody said anything. No requests were sent out. It was just done organically. Everybody knew that needed to be done. And so was stepped in. And so there's this empowerment that exists, this ability to lead and stepping and taking in those coaching roles, taking in that empathy, that problem solving, the ability to put themselves and keep their needs secondary. And so creating that space is so incredible. And it's taken us years to create that culture and have that culture where everyone is feeling safe to be who they need to be, being those people, being vulnerable. And vulnerability is, I think, one of those keys for us in the work that we do in our organization. We're all quite comfortable being vulnerable with each other because we know that that vulnerability will be protected and cared for, and everyone will step in and do what's needed for each other. It's a really hard balance to get, because it can kind of be quite threatening, especially when we bring in new team members. There's a sense of suspicion. It's like, hang on, I'm just waiting to be caught out or yelled at or anything like that, because we've got a philosophy in our team of when we succeed together. When we fail together. It's not one person making a mistake is not a reflection on that person. It's a reflection on all of us, because we should all have been present and supportive and been able to be there to help that person not make that mistake. So it's never ever, it's what we talk about in our stand-ups of what went well. Yeah, what did we do well? What did we do? What didn't we do well? And we have a moment where we spend a lot of time talking about the kudos. So we thank each other. Every 2 weeks, we reflect on what we're grateful for from each team member, of how they've contributed and made our work better. And it's a lovely moment, because people find that the little things that they've done and the gratitude that they're getting from their team members buoys them for another sprint of work. And so it's a powerful space, and what this team does and what it creates as a result of it is incredible. They do the work of twice the number of people in the time provided, but they do it with such grace, such dignity, such incredible capability.
You mentioned about, the gratitude, sharing gratitude every 2 weeks. And I think it's incredibly powerful, because those are the moments where I think a lot of organizations and teams forget about it, because that's not the go moments.
Yeah.
Those are the moments that we slow down and really connect. And I always say in my line of work and Weaver is all about intention. When we build relationship and connection, it has to slow down.
Yeah.
Like, I think our world is too much about optimization of productivity and quick and all those are great for outputs and profit and things like that. But at the same time, it's not good for human connections. Human connections, if we really talk about space between us, to mend any space, to nurture any space, it takes time. And, and one of the practice you mentioned that the meeting, how long is the meeting? That
Usually we go for about an hour, roughly. But we also have gratitude every day. So we kind of, where there's call out, we call out as well. But that's a moment for us to kind of really reflect, and there's real depth. So it's about an hour. We take time out to really focus in on what's been great about what we've done, what we've achieved.
And it's the everyday kind of mindset. You show up to work and it's a culture of people first.
Yeah.
Right. That's supportive of social health and connection in organization. Let's shift gear a little bit. Talk about your personal relationship. You mentioned a lot about very openly and honestly. It's hard. It's challenging. Is there a solution to it, you think? Or is about getting better at asking for help, sharing your needs, setting boundaries? What is the specific behaviors you're getting better to manage this tension?
I mean, it's a point of contention. If I tell you I'm getting better, there'll be somebody in my circle that says, no, she hasn't. But I think it's about, for me anyway, that it's been around trying very, very hard to be present. It's been my big thing is how can I be more present? This year, how can I put away my phone, my laptop, and just be there in that moment? And also kind of creating contracts. So my partner and I've started being more open and talking about social contracting, where we spend time, where I say to him, hey, so during Easter, for instance, because I was taking those couple of days off, I said to him, I'm going to need to work one of these days, and I can't afford to feel guilty about that. So I'm going to need you to, I don't know, do whatever you need to do. That's your stuff. So I can I can take this one day of work. And that was great for us in our relationship, because it allowed me to focus in and do what I needed to do so I could be present these last 2 days. But at the same time, I said to him, if urgent things come up, I may have to pick a call here or there, but that's about it. Once I'm done kind of thing. So it's been a lot of that communication of saying, hey, it's never going to be perfect. Never, ever. I don't think I can ever envision a time when I go on a holiday for extended periods of time where I'm not needed to check in, just because the size of our team's so small and there's so many decisions that need to be made at any point or time. And there's a limit to how far most of the team can go before it starts impacting the strategy of the business, or it starts impacting key deliverables and things like that, where they don't necessarily have that big line of sight. And a reminder that the work we do, while important and powerful and based on, helping others, we're not doing, heart surgery or things like that. It is okay for us to step away sometimes, because we need to step away. I need to tell myself that more, because I used to have a mug that said, an emergency on your part does not necessitate one on mine. And I wish I listened to that mug more. But it is about reminding myself that there needs to be some level of boundary setting. And I probably need to get better at that. Whether I'll get any better at it, I don't know. But I'm feeling like I make micro incremental
Improvements. Yeah. And you have, I think for all of us is experiment, right? And I think that's is so critical even in relationship, right? The talk that you had with your husband about, maybe I need to take a call in this 1 day or 4 days Easter break. That kind of boundary setting is, I think I talk to a lot of female leaders, they are not comfortable to even say it. And I think we need to pat our shoulder. Everything is experiment.
Yeah.
If I fail to say it, doesn't mean that I failed, right? It's just one time. I just carry a little bit more. And if I can set boundary this time, perfectly. That's wonderful. I think we need to take that perfection off our shoulders, do we?
Absolutely. I mean, the joke, of course, is it's taken me 11 years to get here. So let's be honest here. It's not. Right. It didn't happen overnight, and I just didn't go, ta-da, this is me. It's taken, God help that man. He's put up with this for nearly 11 years. So it's just, it has taken many, many moments and many, many reflections, etc., in terms of where we go and what we do. So yeah, and his family and my family, all of them that remind me.
What do you think are the most important thing between the partnership between you and your husband, as in the core value to be able to, or skill that keep you to being on the same page?
Yeah, I think a lot of conversation. And I'm very guilty of not talking or asking for what I need a lot of times because, again, there's a guilt that comes with asking for things because, for a very long time, my rationalization was I'm already making him give up this much. Now, on top of that, I'm going to ask him to do more things in the way that I want them to happen. And it also comes from being raised where I was taught to be hyper independent and not necessarily ask for things. So, and the power of being raised to be a powerful, independent woman is that you find a great sense of guilt and shame for asking for help or for asking for those moments or asking for what it is that you need. And it's such a difficult thing. I still struggle to ask for what it is that I need, because in asking for what I need, there's this weird mindset around, hey, ask for what I need, I'm taking away from someone. And I know that's the case. It's not there's no beautiful little checks and balances here, sitting here going, oh, you took, 5 hours of this, so you need to give me back, an equivalent 5 hours. So it's been a lot of communication and conversation and then taking ownership when it hasn't worked out. My tendency was almost always to kind of almost sit with the guilt and kind of shut down and sit in my mind going on and on and on about guilt is. What's been really lovely now is basically me saying, yeah, look, I'm absolutely, you know what, I did promise to do this, I didn't, and I'm sorry, and and I'm conscious of the fact that this is taken away from you, and I apologize for that. So it's been interesting for us, and he's great. Like, he's recognizing that I'm acknowledging this, that I know that I haven't, and most of the time he'll say, oh, don't be silly, you needed to do that, it's fine. But yeah, and also in my mind, getting rid of the guilty voice going, but look, you lost that moment.
Yeah, it's very hard to get rid of that guilt. I
Okay.
think it's a human condition. I think particularly women that we socialized into. It's in culture, and also I dare to say it's related to our cultural
Oh
upbringing.
God, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like how we see our mom. There is non-negotiable. You just stay home and do all this housework, right?
Yes.
It's just that. That's just it.
Yeah, exactly.
And what boundary are you setting? There is no boundary.
No boundary. Yeah, exactly.
No boundary,
There's no
right?
boundary. I mean, I apologize for, not making him his lunch to take to work every day. There are days where I don't. And he just looks at me and goes, I'm completely self-sufficient and I can make my own lunch. And I know this. I know this in my mind that he can, but I feel guilty for not contributing into the relationship. And so, when we talk about the phrasing that goes around now is what's our love language? How do you show love and care to your partner? Food, because of my Asian background and Indian background, is such an integral part of that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
as a woman, it is, kind of there. My mother and my grandmother, both of them incredible women, they made 3 different meals every day and snacks in between. Like, and my grandmother ran a couple of businesses while she was doing it. So, you think about it and you're like, I don't have an excuse right now for not being able to do this. Um, but I've got to remember that there was a community around, that there was other things around and spaces and places and things that were support systems that were available that I don't necessarily, or I can't necessarily draw from, that existed. But it never goes away. It's that guilt is quite funny in its way, and culture is such a huge part of that.
And how do you think you get better at getting out of that space? Not getting rid of that feeling, but getting out of that guilt.
Yeah, look, I mean, I have moments of what I call absolute rebellion, where I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore because, like, what this is bullshit. Because there is this part of, it's one of those things of sitting with feminist ideals and going, well, what does feminism mean to me as well?
A big question.
Yeah, and I was having this conversation with one of my colleagues where that definition of feminism that you or I may have been raised with is changing with the next generation down, where feminism is not so much associated with being more, not aggressive, I guess more assertive, etc., and things like that, that you can be soft and you can be feminine And I remember joking about the fact that I hated the color pink for such a long time in my life, and I didn't wear it. But now I make a conscious decision to wear it because it doesn't take away from me. Yeah, so you make these weird associations in your life, that there's something that's to be this person, to be the powerful leader, to be the female leader, to be the mother that's present, to be the partner that's present. We make these rules in our head.
Absolutely.
And then we try to execute them. And then when it doesn't happen, because 99% of the time it doesn't happen the way that you think it's going to happen, you feel guilty and ashamed, and then you spiral out, but you never talk about it. And so you sit with it, and then this adds on. And so you have sleep problems, you have challenges, you've got illnesses. But again, you're not allowed to take a moment to breathe because you have so many other things you need to do, which is horrifying. And I watch this with friends who have kids, with colleagues who have kids, with other women leaders who are balancing all of this stuff. And they never talk about it until you create a space to talk about it, like you are right now. Because the thinking is, who the hell would listen? And you feel guilty, because I feel guilty, like, there's a moment of guilt of, almost feels like I'm complaining to you, but because I know you've got similar things that are going on in your life in terms of the things you're balancing, etc. But I think we need to get over that as women, that we need to create that space like you're creating right now, to be able to talk, to be able to be open about these emotions, open about the vulnerabilities that we feel, and not feel judged or not feel like we have to be more all the time.
It's almost we need to unwire what we have learned culturally and relearn about what does it really mean to build big things and lead teams and organization while having beautiful relationships. I think we need to start to define it differently. It's not about doing everything at the same time or having it all at the time. It is so much pressured. Like, that's my personal opinion, where the narrative of course we can have it all, but we need to think about when to do what and our priorities based on our individual values and the circumstances. So much deep work that you have gone through. And I know a lot of people out there are afraid of doing the deep work. Do you have any advice or messages to them if they want to be a leader? Why is this so important?
I think it's a fantastic question once again. I think the reality is that if you're not honest with yourself, and if you're not honest and almost vulnerable with yourself and okay with looking in the mirror and saying, hey, this is me, you kind of set yourself up for failure from day one. Because if you manufacture this persona that you think people want from you, we know from psychological research that the most you can continue doing this is about 3 weeks to 3 months, depending on, how strong your personality is. And that tends to fall off and fall away. The reality is that the deep work means that you start tapping into that authentic sense of self. The authentic sense of self then guides you to that authentic sense of leadership, because if you're authentic within yourself, you then are presenting with people and you're engaging with people in an authentic manner. People respond to that. And when people respond to that, that naturally kind of gives you opportunity to guide and to coach and to develop, and that puts you in this beautiful space of leadership. The moment you stray from that, or you think you've got to be somebody else, that disingenuousness comes through. It's really, really hard, particularly when you think about some of the work that's being done with anything that's involving human and human interaction. I think if you don't come at it with a sense of humanity, genuineness, and care, you do set yourself up for failure.
And also for your own building that supportive ecosystem, because you mentioned about you got to know who you are to find people that support being safe and safely, even in a professional setting. If you don't know who you are, how do you know who to you close to your life? And I think it's all really start from self and willing to be vulnerable, show the world. It's a big task. It's not a small task to us. And I know me and you have gone through very challenging times to really do that deep work.
Yeah.
And to be able to put ourselves out there take a
Yeah.
lot of courage, you know, and
Yeah.
it almost sometimes feel naked.
I think my fear often is that a lot of young leaders, and particularly young women, think that there's this kind of sequential, serial way to get here, and there isn't. This journey is deep, it's painful, it's hard, it challenges you in ways that you never think that you'll be challenged. But when you come out on the other side, it is a lovely feeling of genuine kind of peace within yourself that allows you to then push that out to the people that are around you.
And based on my experience, and then you were able to find your voice in the most challenging situation to
Oh, yeah.
advocate for others.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you need to feel safe within yourself to
Oh, yeah.
use your voice to challenge status quo, to support people
Yeah.
around you, even in the
Absolutely.
most challenging time. Yeah, we're still learning, are we? Yeah, I thought like when I turned 40, I was like, "Oh, I think I'm done with some of the deep work." I'm like, no. It's like that onion.
Yeah.
It's like more and more you go to this journey, it's like the circumstances bring you to, oh, I thought I've done this deep work. More? All right.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Right.
Yeah.
And then it becomes like when you look back, oh my God, I have actually done so much work internally. And
Yeah.
I got here not easy. I'm sure you feel the same.
Oh.
In this journey of balancing work and family and marriage, what resources did you like learn from?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think a lot of it's been reading, definitely. And I have a lovely psychologist who's very good at calling out my bullshit. She's been really, really good in that way. And I have friends who are really
Yeah.
lovely and hold me accountable and help me really kind of, investigate what that feels like. And I'm so comfortable with my team at work as well that I can chat to them about some of the challenges, and they kind of hold up the mirror for me and say, hey, Nitha, maybe you're being a bit too rough or a bit too hard, etc., and stuff like that as well. So it's just a really nice rhythm of finding the people that I need, because I can't always call my psychologist because that's a very expensive venture. There's been some really great reading around bringing that authentic self that's been instrumental for me, which has come from not just the space of the traditional Bren Brown kind of thing, but also from some really inspirational people online who are of Asian background who talk about this dichotomy and what it is that's there. And dare I say you, Christine, because you actually post some really incredible things about this, about being in that space and what does it feel like and how do we sit with this, our emotions, etc., and things like that. So it's been really lovely to kind of watch and kind of listen to some of the work that you've put in and some of the writings that you've done as well. So yeah, so that's been really good. So yeah, so
Yeah.
there you go. I'm going to tick you in there as well because I do.
Thank you. Thank you for including me to your list. And such a privilege. The work that I'm doing, I have to say, working with female leaders like yourself and others is such a privileged position. And it humbled me every single day. Like to have your trust and my clients' trust around stories like this is such I just lost word sometimes. So thank you, Nitha. If there is a magic wand that you have to rebuild a school system or teach kids about relationship skills, what do you think there is one relationship skill that a child need to learn for us to have better humanity?
Look, I'll probably use this. My godson did this the other day, which taught me something really powerful. We were sitting around. It was a really lovely afternoon. We just finished Easter lunch, etc. There was a lot of screaming and yelling. And my godson, with the kids that were there in our space, he just suddenly piped up from in between the entire room full of adults and goes, I'm feeling very regulated right now. And in that moment, I realized that there were 6 adults in the space. And we were all exhausted and we were all just fighting to be present in our conversations that were happening in the room. We were all trying so hard to be there for each other as we were talking. And we all laughed because here's an 8-year-old showing such emotional intelligence, such vulnerability that I know that no matter where he goes in his life, if he continues to be this person, that he will do well. And I think that's what I'd like, is that I'd love to teach young people that you don't have to be anything more than who you are, and that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to have these fears, and create the spaces for everyone to share those fears. So that level of emotional intelligence and guidance, I think if we could teach young people that, we would probably get rid of some of this tension that we have around the patriarchy, the sexism, misogyny, the everything. Anger, as we all know, it comes from fear a lot of the time. And so the fear comes from a lack of knowledge or understanding. But if we are truly able to be to each other who we need to be.
He's has the language to talk about co-regulation. He
Yeah.
was expressing, oh, I feel so much love from you all. I'm so regulated.
Yeah.
And while the adults are exhausted.
Yeah, we all burst out laughing because it's such a moment of, intense vulnerability. He felt so safe in that moment
Yeah.
to
Safety.
be that person. And why can't we create that space of safety for each other? We create that space of safety for each other. Being vulnerable doesn't feel quite as threatening. So yeah, if I could do that, if I could go around every classroom and teach young people to be vulnerable, to be okay, and to support each other through that vulnerability so that they can be who they need to be, that I think would be amazing.
Oh my God, that is such a great ending to this podcast, because I can't agree more about what you said. That's what Weaver is here for, is to really help people to develop that skills about, communicating and empathetic and being understanding of each other, and create a safety within yourself and for each other. I think we will become so much more connected in this very busy world if we are able to do that.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Nitha.
Sure.
You were amazing, and I've learned a great deal from you during this journey, and I'm so grateful that I can call you a friend and a peer that I can actually call you before a board meeting. And thank you so much for being here with us, with me. And I know that wasn't easy to talk about, relationship and your relationship with your husband, and thank you for your vulnerability as well, and your leadership. And the world need more leaders like you. I'm very grateful you trust me with your story.
Thank you so much, Christine. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If this conversation resonates with you, I'd love you to share it with someone who is navigating the same tension, someone who is building something big and wondering how to stay close to the people they love and care. All the links and resources we talked about are in the show notes. New episode drops every 2 weeks. And if you want to stay connected between episodes, follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. I share stories, insights, and reflections on social health and relationships to help you build stronger connections. Until next time, I'll see you in the space between us.